Picture this: southern Mesopotamia, 3500 BC. A group of humans is about to make one of the most audacious bets in history. For 200,000 years, humans survived by spreading out. Small groups, mobile, always moving. Every instinct, every survival mechanism, every lesson passed down from our ancestors said, do not cluster together. Concentration meant disease. It meant violence over resources. It meant you could run out of food. But these humans, they ignored all of it. They chose a patch of ground between two rivers, the Tigris and the Euphrates, and they started building, not a camp, not a village, a city. Within a few generations, 40 to 80,000 people lived crammed into just a few square miles. The city was called Uruk. By every reasonable prediction, it should have collapsed within a decade. But it lasted 5,000 years. Think about that. Uruk stood longer than every modern nation combined, longer than Rome, longer than Byzantium, or the Eastern Roman Empire for the purists out there, longer than any empire you have ever heard of. And here's what nobody tells you. What is the bet these ancient urbanites made? It is the same bet that we are making today with over $150 million of our own capital, investing where we are investing. So what actually happened here? Why did it work when it shouldn't have? Let me tell you a story that will change how you think about cities forever. Before Uruk, humans lived in small farming communities, maybe 100, 200 people max. You knew everyone. You trusted your neighbors because you had to. If someone stole from you, everyone knew it. There was a level of cohesive trust in these small communities that allowed them to work. It was simple, it was stable, and it was safe. But around 4000 BC, something shifted in the Fertile Crescent. Agriculture got good enough that you could produce a surplus, more food than you needed. And surplus creates a problem. What do you do with it? You can't eat it all, it'll spoil, so you have to trade it. But trade requires something revolutionary: trust between strangers. And that's when humans did something unprecedented. They created the first pattern, one that we are still following today. They said, what if we all move to one place? We can specialize. I'll make pottery, you grow wheat, he'll work metal, and that guy will be the storyteller. But specialization only works at scale. You need enough people that there's demand for a dedicated potter, a dedicated metal worker, a dedicated priest. And you need them all in one place because moving goods was expensive and dangerous. So they built Uruk. And now here's where it gets really interesting. The first thing they built wasn't walls for protection. It was not granaries even for food storage. It was a temple, specifically the White Temple of Inanna. Why? Because they needed a shared story, something bigger than themselves that justified this crazy experiment. And these priests became the first pattern keepers, if you will, the ones who held the city's shared beliefs together when logic said, scatter and survive. The temple, it wasn't just religious, it was their first institution. It organized labor, it stored surplus, it settled disputes, it created written language to track everything. They literally invented writing because the city got too complex to run on memory and trust alone. And here's what this teaches us. Cities don't form because of buildings, they form because of trust at scale. The architecture follows the pattern, not the other way around. By the way, if you enjoy this sort of analysis, make sure to check out the Timeless Investor link below in the comments. I write long-form analysis on real estate, history, economics, and general investing principles for a collective audience of more than 20,000 people today. Totally surreal to say that, given this entire experiment in the Timeless Investor started maybe 9 months ago, but it's awesome and it's true. So if you haven't checked it out yet, please do so. Subscribe if you like it. And if this video is hitting it for you so far, make sure to like and hit that subscribe button as well. Now, most people think cities are a modern invention, and they've been sold a myth. And the myth goes like this. Once upon a time, life was rural and beautiful, an agrarian paradise. People lived in harmony with the land. Their children danced in the sun, and the sun kissed their hair, and everybody was happy. It felt like the Shire in Lord of the Rings. And actually, Total side note, J.R.R. Tolkien was a big believer in the positive virtues of rural living and that urban living was dark and corrupted. And there's a reason why, Saruman specifically, but Sauron as well, are represented in the books and in the movies by industrialization, black coal, all these kind of things. And the Shire represents paradise, the Garden of Eden, this like beautiful place. It's a big believer in this imagery, in this philosophy. And this is what we've been sold, right? We had this world, this beautiful world. And then suddenly came the Industrial Revolution, belching factories, forced migration, cities as a necessary evil, the horrific 10-hour work days that don't care about when the sun comes out and you just march into the factory like drudgery. And people were forced to come into it. It has a biblical feel to it, guys. Man was pure, innocent. We lived in the Garden of Eden. And then industrialization ruined it all. And the city was our fall from grace. Okay? That's the myth. That's the story we've been sold. This is a complete fiction. It is the kind of story the truthless would tell you to keep you docile. Cities existed for 5,000 years before the first factory opened. Rome had over 1 million people in 200 AD. Baghdad, 1 million people, 900 AD. Constantinople, 500,000 people for centuries. Medieval London had 180,000 people living in it by 1600, 150 years before industrialization. The Industrial Revolution didn't create cities. It accelerated a 7,000-year trend that started with Uruk. And here's the uncomfortable truth nobody wants to admit. That agrarian rural life everyone romanticizes and that we saw in the Shire and looks, frankly, pretty awesome, it sucked. It was terrible. Life was brutal, short, and hard. Infant mortality was 40%. Life expectancy was 30 years. 30 years. Cities didn't destroy paradise. They created civilization. Almost every major innovation in human history, writing, mathematics, philosophy, medicine, law, came from cities. Why? Because you need something called collision. You need diverse people with different skills smashing ideas together to create something. Okay, here's where this story gets really interesting. Because modern researchers discovered something that ancient Urukites intuited 7,000 years ago. When you double a city's population, economic productivity doesn't just double. It increases by 130%. This is called superlinear scaling, and it has been proven mathematically across dozens of cities worldwide. Think about what this means. 10 people working together don't produce 10x output. They actually produce X. 100 people, not 100x, 130x. A million people, not a million X, 1.3 million X. Why? Because population density creates collision. Collision creates ideas, and ideas create value. The potter meets the metalworker. The metalworker meets the priest. The priest meets the trader. And suddenly someone invents money, hard currency, whatever you want to call it, or writing, or the wheel, or some innovative idea behind melding pottery with metalworking with some religious function that creates an entirely new thing. Cities are Shadesmar made physical, where thoughts become real through collision and connection, okay? Together. And here's the kicker. This phenomenon is stronger today, infinitely stronger than it was in Uruk. MIT researchers found that America's top 10 most innovative cities house 23% of the population, but they produce 48% of all patents, 33% of GDP. That is not coincidence. That is network effect happening in a statistically proven fashion. That is Uruk's pattern repeated at scale. Okay. Now, in 1981, an economist named Julian Simon published a book that Wall Street hated. His thesis was simple and radical. Humans are the only resource that actually matters. Not oil, not gold, not even land. People. Specifically, people thinking, creating, solving, and innovating. Every other resource is finite until humans figure out how to expand the supply or invent substitutes. And when economists actually calculated global wealth, Simon was proven right. Human capital, people's skills, knowledge, and capabilities, represents 64% of all global wealth. Natural resources was just 6%. The most valuable thing on Earth isn't sitting in the ground. It's sitting in offices, labs, universities, and coffee shops, and it is concentrated in cities. Every great leap in human history happened in a city. Athens birthed democracy and philosophy. Florence birthed the Renaissance. Silicon Valley birthed the internet. Why? Because ideas need friction, progress needs collision, and collision requires population density. The pattern holds, and the wheel turns ever onwards. So here's where all of this fun stuff that I find fascinating, and I hope you guys do as well, meets modern investing. Right now, everyone's saying remote work has killed cities. Why pay San Francisco prices when you can live in Austin? Or to take a more extreme example, because Austin is also a city, why pay San Francisco prices when I can live in a rural town in the middle of nowhere and have an internet hookup and connection? And on the surface, it sounds logical, but they're making the same mistake, in my opinion, that people have made for 7,000 years. They're confusing how we work with why we cluster. The pattern doesn't change just because the medium shifts. Yes, in 2020, cities did empty. Manhattan lost 300,000 people. San Francisco office vacancy hit 20%. I believe it's even higher today. Hasn't really recovered, right? Hasn't recovered. Every pundit declared the urban age over. But then what happened? By 2023, people started coming back. Foot traffic recovered, rents rebounded. McKinsey found that hybrid work stabilized around 30% below pre-pandemic, meaning 70% of in-person activity remained. And here's the tell. Where did the smartest companies in the world choose to build? OpenAI just leased 486,000 square feet in San Francisco, biggest lease of 2023. Anthropic grabbed 230,000 square feet. These are AI companies. They could literally work anywhere. If some rural town were the future, why didn't they go build there? They didn't because they understand the 7,000-year pattern supporting this evolution of human where we live. They know that realmatic interactions, the physical realm, still matter more than the cognitive connections alone. You have to be there. Remote work handles the routine. Cities handle everything else. The deals, the negotiations, the serendipity you cannot just replace with Zoom. So, what does this mean for capital? The cities that everyone's scared of right now, Seattle, San Francisco, New York, Chicago, those are modern Uruks. Not because they're growing the fastest, not because they have the best migration stories, because they have what Uruk had. Geographic constraints, right? Water, mountains, legal boundaries, deep institutions, universities, museums, culture, more universities, hospital ecosystems, massive research ecosystems, diverse economic bases, not just one industry, network effects already in motion. These cities have been making the Uruk Bet for centuries, and just like Uruk, they will probably outlast the empire that built on easier ground. Phoenix and Austin may boom and bust. They're elastic. When demand surges, they build a ton of units. Supply floods, rent crash, investors get killed. But Seattle and San Francisco cannot build fast enough. Geography won't allow it. Politics won't allow it. And that is not a bug. That is a feature. It is the same constraint that has made major cosmopolitan global cities valuable for eternity. 7,000 years ago, humans made an impossible bet. They clustered together despite every instinct saying to scatter. They built institutions despite no guarantee they'd work. They created writing, law, mathematics, and culture, all to manage the complexity of living at scale. And that city, Uruk, outlasted every empire, every dynasty, every kingdom that thought they knew better. The pattern holds, and the wheel turns onward. Cities won 7,000 years ago, they won 700 years ago, they won 70 years ago, and they will keep winning as long as humanity exists. The only question is, are you betting with the pattern and how you think about investing or against it? If you found this an interesting analysis, check out the link below to the deeper premium analysis we've sent out to our premium Substack subscribers. If you're not a subscriber to the Timeless Investor Show and you want to learn more, follow the intersection of history, international finance, strategy, great builders, real estate investing, live lessons from myself, who's building a $150 million plus real estate portfolio today on the ground across the Pacific Northwest. Subscribe, hit that notification bell, join us, become a timeless investor. Think well, act wisely, build something timeless.